Welcome to Response Able Parenting, the podcast that shows you how to parent in alignment to your emotions, needs, and goals versus your programming, bad advice, and let's face it, outdated strategies that just don't work. You'll get in the trenches support on nervous system and emotional regulation, critical mindset shifts, stronger communication strategies, and more. In this podcast, you'll gain transformational tools that take you from reacting to every frustration to responding with clarity, regulation, and finally setting the example you desire for your kids. I'm Becky Jennings, your new parenting coach, and this is the Response Able Parenting podcast. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Response Able Parenting. I am actually doing a quick little intro here before we jump into this guest episode because I really wanted to share why I brought this author illustrator team onto the podcast, because so often for us as parents of neurodivergent children, we can catastrophize. We can think of all of the futures of all of the challenges that we might face as parents or that our children might face. And we can tend to get caught up in that fear spiral. And when I interviewed Lynn Greenberg, who you will meet in just a few moments, it really kind of gave me this like exhale moment, this relief just to know that even in the midst of the challenge, even in the midst of the dark spots, that they were able to find that unique, beautiful strength that her son Jonathan had. And they were able to nurture it to the point where now he is the illustrator of the books that we're going to talk about in this episode. So I'm using this not only as an opportunity for, especially if you have young children, these books are really, really helpful to help your kids see themselves in these books. Also, it gives us as the parents this beautiful visual of what is possible with our ADHD, our neurocomplex kids. So just a quick intro of who I will be talking to. You get to meet Lynn Greenberg of the Lynn and Jonathan Greenberg duo. They are a mother and son duo behind the creative Cab Company children's book series. They have two books, Robby the Dyslexic Taxi and the Airport Adventure, and Suzy the ADHD Taxi and the Sightseeing Adventure. What makes their story extraordinary is that Jonathan, who has both dyslexia and ADHD, is also the illustrator of these books. Together, he and his mom are rewriting what representation looks like in children's books. Their mission is simple but powerful: to help kids who learn differently see themselves as the heroes in their own stories. Both books use dyslexia-friendly fonts. They are relatable storytelling to celebrate neurodiversity in ways that are joyful, empowering, and accessible. I so hope you enjoy this interview, that you enjoy Lynn's story. And if this sounds like something that would be beneficial for you, go ahead and check the show notes as to where you can get your own copy of these two beautiful books. Thank you and enjoy the episode. So Lynn, welcome. I am so excited to talk to you. So walk me through, how did you and your son decide to write this book?
Well, thank you for having me. This is great. I love talking about the book and our journey. So, during COVID, John was home. He is my youngest of four. He was an art major in college. And so it's pretty hard to do everything virtually or most things virtually, but especially art. So he was doing, some things on his own. And at the same time, I was also reading on FaceTime to my grandchildren. And so we're like, why don't we, you do the art, we'll like make a story. And he said, okay, sure. And it grew. What do we know about? We know about dyslexia. We know about neurodivergent characters. We know about, what do kids like? Trains, planes, automobiles, cute little characters. And so that's how our first book, that's how Robby the Dyslexic Taxi was born. And once we sort of wrote the book, I showed a friend who is a book designer. And I said, what do you think? And she's like, great. And so she helped us put it together, and that's how our journey started.
I love it. I love it. So walk me through, you're writing this book and you're starting to bring in these characters. Is Robby Jonathan?
Well, Funny you should ask. No, okay. So his middle name is Robert. So that's Robby. And so yeah, it does come from a lot of the things that he sort of had to excuse me, had to deal with,
Yeah.
growing up, being, a little different. And remember, he's 26 now. So back then you couldn't Google things. You couldn't, just say, what is dyslexia? Or I see this going on. What should I do? Or who should I talk to? And so I knew that he was smart. He's my youngest of four, and I knew he was smart, but he wasn't hitting some of the milestones, even if you take into account, everyone has a different learning style. And so I started asking. I have a friend who's a pediatrician, and I started asking around and going to the library and researching. And I'm like, I wonder if. And the school didn't care. They're like, no, he's just slow. He's not that smart. Make him repeat kindergarten. I'm like, no, that's not it. So found someone who would test him. And sure enough, classic dyslexic with ADHD, super smart. He just was going to have to learn how to learn differently. And that started a new journey for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Walk me through that process of, we finally discovered, we feel the relief, obviously, of having an answer to the challenge that we've been having, but then the advocacy comes into it, right? So
Yes.
what grade was he when you discovered?
He was in first grade.
Okay.
I didn't know enough. I kept trying to understand and, how to best approach this. And when I did have him tested, the woman I, was introduced to was lovely. She had a child who was dyslexic and another child who was autistic. So she understood that the testing process was going to be hard for John. And she was kind and really took the time.
Yeah.
And getting the answer wasn't just a relief to us, but really to John, because he's like, oh, whew, it's like not my fault. Yeah, I'm not stupid. This is something.
Yeah.
And for us, the school, no matter what we did, no matter what we said, the school, and it's a good school system, was like, said to us, the learning specialist said, I can't help him.
Mhm.
So that started a journey, and there's a school about 45 minutes away, a private school. And we went there, and I thought, oh, if he can get into this school, because they only teach kids with language-based learning issues, and they can have ADHD, but they can have, you know, uh, a lot of other things that would make it hard to teach the kids. So we made a family decision. It would be me driving, it would be us all eating a lot of peanut butter, like what would this look like? And so we made the decision. And within a few weeks of him being at that school, saying the alphabet, doing all the things that he couldn't have done a month before. So it was really, we were so lucky.
Yeah. 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 And it's one of those things where the intuition and the instinct is there, right? It's so amazing how many mothers, I mean, I would say arguably 100% of mothers, we know something is up far before we're given the thumbs
Yes.
up, far before we're given the diagnosis. And it really is that advocacy, that not taking our foot off the gas until our kids actually get the support that they deserve, that
Oh,
they need.
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
I think you really have to go with your gut, just like you said, because so many people are naysayers. And a lot of people are, oh, you're wrong, or he'll be fine, or she'll be fine, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And, I think I know it's sexist to say, but I think the mother often is the one who has the first clue.
Yeah.
And even the tester told me that sometimes she'll give, this is, going back, but she would give the parents the diagnosis, and the mother would be like, yep. And the father, she said, often would be like, not my child.
Mm.
And that's not to say I was so lucky, because, my husband, John's father, was totally on board and supportive.
Yeah.
But I have heard from a lot of other people since then that it has been kind of hard
Yeah.
to get people to listen to that. And it can be an uphill battle, but I would say, like you said, don't take your foot off the gas. Just
Yeah.
keep trying to get there.
Yeah. I know we're here to talk about the book and I definitely want to, but I want to hear from you. What did you feel like in that process? How did you sort of overcome those barriers? Like what tenacity did you have to take on? What mindset did you have to take in order to continue to push through and not listen to the naysayers?
It was very hard because, as I said, the school wouldn't test him. They told me I was wrong. And it really, I knew I wasn't wrong about, I didn't know the diagnosis, but I knew I wasn't wrong about the abilities he had and the shortcomings he might have.
Yeah.
And, luckily I also, I had other children, so I know everyone learns differently. I have 4 kids. One was like an amazing math student. The other 3 needed math tutors. Like everyone learns differently,
Yeah.
but I just knew something was up. And I, had to hire an advocate to come in with me to school. That she tried, but that didn't help. And so when I finally had him tested, and I went to Windward with him, I was so lucky because I found a community when they, agreed that he was dyslexic and they would take him. I found a community for me and for him. Every other parent that I talked to had the same story as I did, and every other kid had the same story John had. And so we each found our people, which is really, really important. And back then, nobody was really talking about those things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
a really good point too, because you know what, that's like 20 some, probably roughly 20 years ago. The ADHD, it was more just like you have a defiant child. You have a child who has a learning disability. It has nothing to do with ADHD. And you're in a really unique position. Most of the people who listen to my podcast, they have young children. They're still in elementary school age, maybe cresting around preteen age, but they're a very young group of parents. And you have a really beautiful, unique situation where you are a mother to a 26-year-old boy who has ADHD and dyslexia. I'm curious if he's shared with you some of the things that you did during his childhood that meant a lot to him with the needs that he was experiencing or that he had.
um honestly, I think, without putting words in his mouth, he'll tell you that the fact that I and his family believed in him and believed him capable and believed him worthy and believed that he was struggling.
Yeah.
So was the thing that really was the most important to him, because in school he was teased.
Mhm.
His teacher would call me and say, I don't understand. Why can he memorize the story and not read it? Or I don't understand. Why is he getting up and wandering? Well, you're putting him on the spot and embarrassing him, you know? And I think for John, the fact that we all believed in him and knew that he wasn't acting out and trying to be unreasonable, I think was the fact that he had his people,
Yeah.
meant really a lot to him, and he did not feel as badly about himself as some of the other kids around him who might have had other issues were feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah, we know that, ADHD kids, they hear no, what is it, like 20,000 more times than another child just in like 1 year. It's absurd the number of negative criticism, comparatively speaking. Were there ever times that you felt super overwhelmed with the whole process? And how did you cope as a mother of 4 with one child who had special extra needs that needed to be on top of and focused on? How did you keep yourself, able to be that believer, able to be that resounding person for him?
Um, you know, um, my other the other children are much older. John is 8 years younger than the next one. So in a way it was easier and harder because it wasn't like I had little babies at home.
Mm.
But teenagers, you need to be there for them,
Yeah,
almost more so than younger kids sometimes.
yeah.
And I was lucky. I have an amazing, supportive, wonderful husband, who was there and did as much as he could. We, division of labor. I, with the 4 kids, decided to not work outside the home at that point. It was just too much. And so, if he needed to get home for me, he would do his best to do that. Or I have a good group of friends, I would call and say, "Can you please pick up so and so for me? I'm stuck in traffic." But it took a lot of creativity and planning,
Yeah.
quite a few days, because unfortunately, we can't really clone ourselves, even though we'd like to try. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So walk me through the co-authoring process with you and Jonathan. What did that look like?
um, at first, I was going to just write the stories, and he was going to do the illustrations. And then, early on, we were very sure, he was sure that he had a point of view that was important.
Mm.
So we co-authored and illustrated. He did all the illustrations. He I say that I do stick figures, and he says, "Don't discount those."
Yeah.
So, we decided also, honestly, to say we have to take our mother-son hats off, and we have to be able to be honest with each other,
Yeah.
because if, I wasn't crazy about something in a picture, or he wasn't crazy about some of the words we used in the story, or we knew we had to be honest with each other, else we were gonna have a lot of hurt feelings,
Mm.
and especially, for the child. And so I don't know that every mother and child can do that, but we really had the ability to do that. We having spent like so much time and so much time in the car together, and we had that ability to communicate with each other,
Yeah.
which was fortunate.
I'd like to introduce you to Jeff Hittner and the Ambitious Dads podcast. This podcast is for dads trying to build a meaningful career and still show up at home, and who sometimes feel like they're failing at both. After hundreds of conversations with fathers, Jeff realized they're not talking enough about what modern fatherhood actually feels like. The pressures to provide, the fear of messing it up, the moments they lose control, and the quiet worry that they're not doing enough. On Jeff's show, they get honest about the fears and mistakes, and they also share the bright spots, what's working, and the small wins that keep them going. Jeff and I have joined forces because we keep seeing the same patterns in both of our audiences. Couples who love each other but keep getting stuck in tense loops around their kids and the stress that it causes. So we're hosting a 90-minute couples workshop called From Tense to Together. In the show notes, you can register. It is on February 22nd, and search for Ambitious Dads wherever you listen to your podcasts. So walk me through the stories. That you talk a lot about the representation of different types of neurodiversity. Walk me through the series. What each book has to share with all of us.
The first one was Robby the Dyslexic Taxi and the Airport Adventure. And that was, at first we thought that's what we'll do, just that book. But we've been on so many, wonderful podcasts, and we had so much attention. And John went back to the school, to the Windward School where he went, and he was treated like a rock star, like all these kids are like, yeah, I see myself, and I can do this.
Yeah.
And everyone started saying, well, what are you going to do next? And we went back and forth about it, because now John is getting his MFA. He's in Chicago. And we decided that we really would like to try to make a series, because there aren't a lot of kids' books. And when John was little, there were no kids' books that talked about neurodivergent issues. And we thought this is a really underserved, but really special and an important community.
Yeah.
So Robby works at the Creative Cab Company, and we decided that we were going to write a series. And then the second book was, Suzy, the ADHD Taxi, and the Sightseeing Adventure. And Suzy just came out, and we have gotten such great receptions. Both books won the Creative Child Awards, one in 23 and one in 25. And the feedback we've gotten has been really, I think the reason we decided to do this was to have people feel good about themselves. And I think the fact that that has been happening has been really rewarding.
Absolutely. Have you received feedback from kids? Have they shared with you like, "Oh my gosh, I saw blank in me." What have you heard from kids so far?
So when John went back to school, he really was, can you sign my book? Can you sign my autograph? And he felt, we're going to go back again with this book in a couple months. And he felt terrific. We did a book signing, and this kid came up to him and said, "Oh my God, no one ever knew what dyslexia was. And, I can show my mother, not mother, my grandmother, my teacher, I went to read this a couple years ago to the first book to Robby, to my grandson's class, and they were at the time in first grade. And that's when a lot of children are learning to read. And it opened up a huge conversation with the kids, with the teacher, what does it mean? And, I can read fine, but ooh, I'm having trouble. And those are all the conversations that we were hoping to have. And so when they do happen, it makes us both feel really terrific about it.
Yeah. I remember when we first got the diagnosis for my son with ADHD, we got a workbook. It was like Thriving with ADHD or something like that. And they were kind of referencing like these are the different types of ADHD you can have, and go through and check them off, and you'll learn like what kind of, like, what was a gazelle, or was it, a turtle or something like that. And he was like, I got 100% on all of them. And I was like, oh my goodness. I'm like,
Yay.
in my head, I'm like, that wasn't the goal here, but okay. But it's so true. It's like, I mean, even just the workbook that we utilized for a brief moment in time is like, he saw himself in the pages, and he was like, that's me, that's me, that's me. And that representation, it was almost like, beforehand, it's this external thing, right? It's like something happening to me. It's like something that's a burden on me. It's I'm, saddled with this, and I can't change it, and nobody understands it, right? And how can I explain to my mom like my racing thoughts, and why I can't complete a project, and why I can't, sit at the dinner table, and it's always a conflict, right? These things that create resistance and create pressure and create shame in the child just builds and builds and builds. And being able to point to something and say, that feels like me, I can only imagine the relief it feels for somebody.
Yeah. And when John, as I said, when John went to the Windward School, like within the first few days, he goes, they're all like me.
Mhm.
They're,
Yeah.
I'm not, crazy. I'm not stupid. I'm not whatever was thrown at him.
Yeah.
He said, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I have all these people who are just like me, and I'm capable. And I think that's so important because,
Absolutely.
you know, too many times with any neurodivergent issue, people say, oh, you're less than. And that's not the case. John thinks of it as a superpower.
Yeah.
But for the fact that he was dyslexic, maybe he wouldn't have been drawing so much as a child when he couldn't read. And this is his outlet. And I think everybody needs to understand that they all have their superpowers. So
Were you always of that mindset? I know that your message now is that, every difference is a strength, right? These really, uh, these big challenges that they face ultimately can result in having a tremendous superpower, right? Like you were saying, he struggled to read, found art, and he's an illustrator, and it's an incredible testament to being able to hone that strength and not feel embarrassed by it, and not have it consume you in shame. Was it always your way of addressing it and living it into the family, is this is a strength versus a weakness? Or were there times where you struggled, where you're like, this is just too much? Like, walk me through that. How did you do that?
I think we all have to give ourselves grace. We
Mhm.
are not perfect. It is not easy. We have our own feelings and emotions and lives, and we have other children and, you know, jobs, and it's just a lot. And I would be lying if I said that, oh, every day I got up and I was so happy because, it's hard.
Yeah.
It is so hard sometimes.
Yeah.
It's hard to it's hard to give your child what they need sometimes because you don't know, and you're learning about whatever it is. And you have to deal with maybe your other children who have their own issues and don't understand what it is yet. And I think it was a journey for me just as much as it was for John and for my family.
Yeah.
And sometimes, at this point, with my two oldest grandchildren, we were talking about it, and what that means. They may not have a neurodivergent issue, or they may, but what does that mean? And why am I struggling to do this at school? And why is this easy for him? And I can't kick whatever it is, a soccer ball, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think we all need to give each other some grace
Mhm.
and permission to go, oh my God, I have to go to the bathroom. I'm locking the door. Leave me alone for 5 minutes, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. As we're all trying to figure out how to support our children best, we're also, it goes hand in hand with sometimes mourning the loss of the childhood experience you thought you were going to have, or the relationship you thought you were going to have. Almost every single parent that I work with, they did not realize this was an option, right? A lot of the parents, and they don't necessarily have the skills or the tools to be able to handle the enormity of it, because it often does require more, right? ADHD kids talk 20% more than non-ADHD kids. Just that 20 extra percent of just talking can be more than we all expected, right?
oh,
So
yeah.
was there something that you um because you have a beautiful relationship now, right? And I think I'm trying to speak to the people who are in the thick of it right now.
Sure.
What is something that you held on to as the mother of a neurodivergent child that kept you focused on the goal, kept you focused on the support versus trying to fix, correct, or, just shut it down?
I think finding your people, whatever
Mhm.
that means, is so important because sometimes you just need to vent a little. Or, I see this. Have you seen this? Exchanging ideas, being supportive, listening, sharing. And I think, gosh, I think that is so important.
Yeah.
And now, there are Facebook groups, there are wonderful podcasts, there are so many other platforms. But back then, I didn't know who to talk to.
Yeah.
And so I would say really it's so important to find people who are in the same similar boat for you, for your kids, for your family. Everybody is sort of needing different things, and you can't be everything to everybody.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Yeah, and I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to be the person that solves it for our children, right? And you're right, it's too much to do it all. And ultimately, when I found out that my son, I just thought, holy cow, this kid has the strongest will of all time. Like I've never met a force like this before. Ultimately, found out, ADHD plus whatever else we're experiencing. But that's why I created this community as well, because I didn't have the resources. Like I didn't know anybody else dealing with this. And
Right.
every person inside of my community is like, that's what I'm dealing with.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
yeah, it really helps to have like, yeah, me too. Me too. That's me too. That's my experience too.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
absolutely. Oh, I can't stress that enough for
Yeah.
how important I think that is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, where can people find your book? Is it sold everywhere? We have dyslexia, we have the ADHD books. Is there anything else on the horizon that you're going to be writing about?
We are. We're kind of toying about with some ideas and trying to see what other neurodivergent issue might translate into some sort of vehicle.
Love it.
There's so many options, and we're just trying to decide what best to do next. Um, you can find us on all social media on creativecabcompany.com. You can DM us. We have a website, same name. You can go to Amazon and buy the book. If you go into a bookstore and you might not see it,
Well, everything is it's like you can't. Where is a bookstore?
Exactly. But you can, if you do have one, you can ask and they can order it through an organization called bookshop.org. So, we hope people will want to read it and let us know what they think, write a review and, or just DM us or email us. So we'd love to hear from you.
Well, I'm excited. My son is 8, almost 9, and he's moved kind of away from the picture books, but I feel like even still, this would just be fun for him to see because he'll probably, he when he was a kid, everything was truck, everything was garbage truck, everything was car, everything was motorcycle, everything was scooter. I mean, everything was vehicle. So I still feel like he'll see himself in it and he'll still be, able to resonate and enjoy it.
Well, thanks. Let me know what he thinks. I would love to hear.
I will. Thank you so much for being here, Lynn. This was so wonderful. And for all the parents out there who have these young elementary school kids, what an amazing way to just give relief. Just give like the acknowledgement of I see you. This is normal. This is your superpower, a way to see their differences as a strength and really, focus on that. How can we empower this part of you? How can we find, like you said, he had dyslexia and that was a struggle, but then he became this artist, right? That's such a beautiful way of transitioning the quote unquote diagnosis into something really beautiful. So I applaud what you've done. I admire the relationship that you have. It's such like a, North Star and beacon to see that that is so possible, even in the midst of struggle. So thank you for being that for all of the community who's listening right now, who might feel in the trenches. And it's a really beautiful thing to see.
Thank you so much. This is really kind of you. And John wishes he could be here, but says thank you. And, he hopes that everybody finds a way to see themselves in a place of strength and grace and enjoy who you are. Be proud of who you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Lynn, and everyone. I will see you next week. Can I be super real with you and tell you a personal story? A few years back, my son, the whole reason why I do the job I do today, was having one of those fiery moments. He was talking back, demanding it be his way. He was refusing to listen to any of our solutions, and the moment was getting really intense. My husband looked at me and said, "Well, you know all the parenting stuff, fix this." I completely froze. All the scripts from the books I'd read, all the strategies from the podcasts I'd listened to completely disappeared from my brain in that moment. But based on the volume of challenges that we were having with our strong-willed ADHD son, I knew I had to figure out a different way, because panicking in the moment and grasping at anything only to not follow through at all and end up yelling just wasn't working. From this experience, I developed a repeatable, easy to remember and easy to follow system that literally works with every single triggering moment. I can attest to it because there are many in my life. Now I can show up the way I want. I can communicate in a way that actually resonates with my strong-willed child. If this sounds like a solution for what's happening in your home, take these next 2 steps. Number 1, watch the free training about my rewiring process in the show notes. And then number 2, book your free call. On that call, we will talk about what's happening in your home, and you will get a customized solution that works best for you. I assure you, this doesn't have to feel as hard day in and day out as it does. There is the solution, and I'm so excited to talk to you about it. Thank you for listening to the Response-Able Parenting Podcast. If you like what you heard, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. If you know someone who would benefit from this podcast, I'd be honored if you'd share this episode with them. Until next time, know that you are enough, you are capable, you've made it through all of your hardest days, and we will keep growing on this parenting journey together. This podcast was produced by Kim Kelty and myself, Becky Jennings, and edited by the Kelty Method, Branding and Podcasting.